Hello, my name is Stephen Wright. I'm a career coach here at Career Mentor, and we help high performing financial services professionals make their next smart career move. So, there can be little doubt that building a strong working relationship with your new boss is going to be one of the key elements in having a successful start to your new job. And it strikes me that perhaps your relationship with your new boss doesn't just start on day one of the job, but in fact, it starts during the interview process. And in fact, why not look, therefore, at onboarding processes and processes about building a new relationship with a boss and perhaps take some of those ideas and introduce them as subjects as a candidate into the interview process. So I found this book, First 90 Days by Michael D. Watkins, and in that he talks about 5 key discussions or negotiations to have with a new boss. And it struck me that these would be good subjects for you as a candidate to raise during the interview process, not least because it's going to position you well as a candidate and it will set off that relationship on a great footing. Before I get into what those particular elements or conversations are, there are 3 things that perhaps are worth bringing up before we get into that. And this is about the way in which you raise those subjects. The first thing to say is that it is the interviewer's interview. They must feel that they're in control of the situation. It's their interview. And it's not going to serve you if they feel that in some way you're wresting control of the situation from them, that you're leading too strongly. The second thing to say is that we don't want to presume that we're going to be the successful candidate. We want to be talking speculatively about the future. If this would happen, then that's the sort of tone that we want, not when I. That would be the wrong tone to take. The final thing to say is that, as Michael points out in his book, First 90 Days, is that these subjects are unlikely to be resolved in just a short conversation that you might have about these particular issues during the interview process. These are things that take some time, perhaps even weeks or months, to fully evolve to the relationship that you want to have with a candidate, with your new boss. Having said that, they will lay down a strong foundation and beginning for that relationship to develop. So what are those 5 elements? Well, the first one is, number 1, is the business situation, to gain an understanding about what your future boss thinks the business situation is in. Now, Michael talks about a number of specific situations that businesses can be in, and everything then spills from that because they set the backdrop. The first is the business in a startup, a turnaround, growth phase, realignment, or continued success? So understanding what your boss's view as to where the business is at is going to be a good starting point. Number 2 is to understand what are the specific results that your boss wants you to achieve in the short term and the medium term. So gaining clarity about that is clearly important. And that then leads you on to number 3, which is resourcing. So having understood what they want you to do, how are they going to support you in the achievement of those particular goals? For example, I had a client I was working with who was going to take on a pretty important job within an organization, which, by the way, was going to allow them to reduce costs significantly. However, they were going to resource her only with an untrained intern, which is clearly not going to be adequate for the task. So that then became a point of negotiation later. So understanding the resourcing is important. Number 4 is communication. What is the style, frequency, and structure with which your new boss wants you to communicate? By that I mean, do they want you to talk to them once a day, once a week, once a month? How does that work? How do they want you to communicate with them? Would that be on Zoom or an app or WhatsApp or on a text or a call or whatever it might be? And then also, what's the structure? How do they like you to present information and solutions to them? So understanding that is going to be an important starting point. Number 5 is something that I introduce here only for completeness sake, but it's not something I think to lay much emphasis on during the interview process, and it's personal development. Don't get me wrong, I think that having a very clear idea about all the factors that need to be present in any job and any environment that are going to allow you to flourish and give of your best. That is absolutely critical, and it's important that you are going to be able to do well in that new organization, which is why I stress this particular point and doing proper due diligence with the clients that I work with. And clearly, personal growth is a key element of that. But understand that in the interview process, the interviewers are going to be much more interested about what you've got to offer, how you're going to add value to their business, how you're going to contribute to moving that business further forward. So personal growth, what you're going to get out of the situation, is not something to emphasize particularly. Number 6 is something that Michael does not talk about, but something I think that fits here, so I've added it onto this list, and that is reporting. So who specifically will you be reporting to? In some organizations, it's really straightforward. You have one boss and that's it. However, in larger organizations, perhaps which are international and may have their international headquarters in another country, then reporting can become complicated. And I've seen situations where people are expected to report to as many as 3 different people. So become clear about who you're expected to report to on a daily basis, who will be writing your appraisal, if there are bonuses, who will be paying your bonus, and whose P&L do you fall under. Those are things to become clear on. And by the way, it's not unusual, thinking back to my days as a recruiter, it's not unusual for some organizations to be a little bit fuzzy during the interview process as exactly who you will be reporting to. And this is a good thing to become clear on. So I hope you found this useful. I think that starting your relationship with your new boss as early as the interview process clearly makes sense. A lot of these things are going to come up naturally in conversation anyway. But if you can raise them as a candidate, then it's going to position you well as somebody who's curious, inquisitive, discerning, and is going to set off the relationship that you have with your new boss on a strong footing. I'm going to be putting the link to the blog that I wrote about this in the comments below, and thanks very much.